Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Wacky and Weird Wednesday here on the father and daughter news show, Comprehensive News of Planet Earth, where we look at the news 10 to 15 minutes before we start without any caffeine. Let's get into those headlines. Today on Before Coffee, Turkey approves Massacre Law to remove millions of stray dogs.
And why Harris and Democrats keep calling Trump and Vance weird.
Joan of Leeds faked her death to flee a covenant and pursue carnal lust.
And in Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro goes full Ortega. And on News Briefs, we have News of the Weird for this week.
Hundreds of Italian residents joined their mayor on weight loss walks.
All those weird stories and more on National Mutt Day, July 31st, 2024 on Before Coffee.
Okay, first weird news story. Well, it's definitely weird for me, but I guess it's cheaper than simply putting all those dogs in the pound. This is from The Guardian, coming from the Associated Press in Ankara. Turkish legislators have approved a law aimed at removing millions of stray dogs from the country's streets that animal lovers fear will lead to many of the dogs being killed or ending up neglected in overcrowded shelters. Some critics also say the law will be used to target the opposition, which made huge gains in the latest local elections. The legislation includes penalties for mayors who fail to carry out its provisions, and the main opposition party has promised not to implement it. Deputies in the Turkish Grand National Assembly approved the legislation on Tuesday, which was the 30th of July, after a marathon overnight session at the government, as the government pushed to have it passed before the summer recess. Wow, they really wanted this law passed. Thousands have joined the protest across Turkey, calling for the scrapping of an article that would allow some stray animals to be euthanized. Opposition lawmakers, animal welfare groups, and others called the bill the Massacre Law. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who now needs to sign the measures into law, thanked his ruling party and allied parties' legislators who voted in favor of this legislation after an intense and tiring session. Despite the opposition's provocations and campaigns based on lies and distortions, the National Assembly once again listened to the people, refusing to ignore the cries of the silent majority, he said. The government estimates about 4 million stray dogs roam Turkey's streets and rural areas. Although many are harmless, and growing numbers are congregating in packs, and several people have been attacked. The country's large stray cat population is not a focus of the bill. Well, isn't that weird? Hundreds of people gathering in Istanbul's Şahane Square issued a defiant message to the government. "Your massacre law is just a piece of paper for us," the protest organizers told the crowd. "We will write the law on the streets. Life and solidarity, not hatred and hostility, would win." Animal lovers in the capital, Ankara, protested outside the municipal offices. To whistles and jeers, a statement was read. "We are warning the government again and again. Stop the law. Do not commit this crime against the country." Turkey's main opposition party said it would seek to cancel the legislation at the Supreme Court. "You have made a law that is morally, conscientiously, and legally broken. You cannot wash your hands of blood." Murat Emir, a senior deputy with the Republican People's Party, or CHP, said on Sunday, which was the 27th, right? 28th of July, night in Parliament. He questioned why the bill called for healthy and unaggressive animals to be collected if they were not to be killed. Others blamed the growth in the stray canine population on a failure to implement previous regulations, which required stray dogs to be caught, neutered, spayed, and returned to where they were found. The new legislation requires municipalities to collect stray dogs and house them in shelters to be vaccinated, neutered, and spayed before making them available for adoption. Neutered and spayed. Wow, they're doing both. Dogs that are in pain, terminally ill, or pose a health risk to humans will be euthanized. However, many have questioned where cash-strapped municipalities would find the money to build these necessary extra shelters. The CHP, which won many of Turkey's biggest municipalities in election earlier this year, has said it will not implement the law. However, the newly passed bill introduces prison sentences up to 2 years for mayors who do not carry out their duties to tackle strays. Okay, that's the more weird thing part of this story. You didn't help curb the stray population, you're going to jail, leading to suspicions that the law will be used to go after opposition mayors. The government denies the bill would lead to widespread culling. Sorry?
Will these mayors be spayed and neutered also?
Yeah, I have no idea. I guess so. The Justice Minister, Mutt, told journalists last week that anyone killing strays for no reason would be punished. So you're punished if you do, punished if you don't. This is not a massacre law. This is an adoption law. The Agriculture and Rural Affairs Minister, Ibrahim Yamalki, told the Haberturk television in an interview. Murat Pinir, who heads an association campaigning for measures to keep the streets safe from stray dogs, said at least 75 people, including 44 children, had been killed as a result or by traffic accidents caused by dogs since 2022. Okay, but like, which of those are the traffic accidents? Because I don't think the dogs caused those. I'm not trying to be a victim blamer here, but you can just hit the dog, or you can drive your car into another car. I guess that's what people were doing. According to Murat Pinir, or I should say, according to Mutt Pinir, traffic accidents caused by dogs since 2010. His 9-year-old daughter, however, was run over by a truck after she fled from 2 aggressive dogs in 2022. So he has a personal stake in the passing of this law. But I still think the truck is what killed her, not the dogs. But anyways, there's your crazy news about how they're gonna try to use this. They're passing a law that's gonna punish mayors who don't help, and that could cause people who are in the opposition to be put in jail for 2 years. Yeah, you didn't do that dog law, so we're putting you in jail. That's totally what it's about, by the way. It's not because you have policies we don't agree with.
Well, follow the laws that we passed, I guess, right? Yeah. Establish a dog catcher commission, round up strays and give them, what do they call it? I don't know what they all call it. All right. So is it my story now?
Yep.
Now I gotta clear my throat. All right. So we're gonna go on the AP News. This is why, if you've been listening to the American presidential campaign, you know that we're hearing the weird meme. Why Harris and Democrats keep calling Trump and Vance weird. AP Meg Kennard, Vice President Kamala Harris and her Democratic allies are emphasizing a new line of criticism against Republicans, branding Donald Trump and his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, as weird. Democrats are applying a label with gusto in interviews online, notably to Vance's comments on abortion and his previous suggestion that political leaders who didn't have the biological children don't really have a stake in the country. That's weird. The weird message appears to have given Democrats a narrative advantage that they rarely had when President Joe Biden was still running for re-election. Trump's campaign, which so often shapes political discussions with former president's pronouncements, has spent days trying to flip the script by highlighting things about Democrats it says are weird. I don't know who came up with this message, but I salute them, says David Karpf, a strategic communication professor at George Washington University. Perhaps labeling Republicans as weird is a sort of concise take that resonates quickly with Harris supporters. Plus, Karpf noticed, it frustrates opponents, leading them to further amplify it through off-balance responses. So far, at least, Trump-Vance has been incapable of finding an effective response, Karpf said. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, a Democrat who is on Harris's short list for vice president, called Trump and Vance just weird last week in an NBC interview in which the Democratic Governors Association, of which Walz is chair, amplified in a post on social media. Walz reiterated the characterizations on Sunday on CNN, referencing Trump's repeated mentions of a fictional serial killer, Hannibal Lecter, from the film Silence of the Lamb and stump speeches. Because that is weird. Responding to Trump's Thursday appearance on Fox News, Harris campaigned in a news release with the subject line, statement on a 70-year-old criminal's Fox News appearance. That was the title of the That was the title of the memo. Statement on the 70-year-old criminal's Fox News appearance. Included Trump's old and quite weird in a bulleted list of takeaways. Old and quite weird. A day later, multiple news releases from the Harris campaign described her opponents similarly, declaring simply that J.D. Vance is weird, in part due to his stance on abortion, and Harris campaign spokesperson said that Vance has spent all week making headlines for his out-of-touch, weird ideas. Two of Harris's allies, Senators Brian Schatz of Hawaii and Chris Murphy of Connecticut, on Friday posted a video on X calling Vance's past comments about limiting the political power of childless Americans a super weird idea. And then, at her first fundraiser since becoming the Democrats' likely White House nominee, Harris used the characterization herself, calling out some of Trump's wild lies about my record and some of what some of his running mates are saying is just plain weird. I mean, that's a box you put that in, right? She added. Many of the Democrats' comments appear to be allusions to a 2021 interview with Vance in which he slams some prominent Democrats without biological children, including Harris, as childless cat ladies with no direct stake in America. But Harris's own characterization of Trump as weird may date back even further. In his 2021 book, political reporter Edward Isaac Dovere wrote that Harris reportedly gathered with aides in 2018 to prepare for her own presidential bid. As staff turned to prepare for her for how she'd react if during a debate, Trump stood over her as he did Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton in 2016, Harris Lee reportedly quipped, I turn around and say, why are you being so weird? What's wrong with you? Trump's campaign has tried to flip the script. On Sunday, Trump spokesman Stephen Choing posted a video of Walz calling Trump and Vance weird as he stumped for Harris and said likely Democratic nominee and her backers were themselves aligned for trying to gaslight everyone into thinking the shooting was staged. I don't remember Harris saying anything like that, so that's never happened. So it's something that's just never happened, since Harris has never said anything of the sort, so he's just making that up. More broadly, some of the Trump's allies have angled to turn the conversation back to Harris, what they portray as her failed policy. Now, I say the assassination was staged, but Vice President Harris has never said anything like that. Donald Trump, the Dementia J. Trump Jr., the former president's oldest son, took to Twitter on Monday to ask, you know what's really weird? Soft and cream politicians like Kamala. On Saturday, Vince posted the next video Trump Jr. shared in which Harris talked about climate anxiety, which is the fear of the future and unknown on whether it makes sense for you to even think about having children. Yeah, so this is realistic. It's almost like these people don't want young people starting families or something, Vance wrote. Really weird stuff. No, you're just concerned about the climate, and you're like, why would I bring my kids into this world that's we're just going to melt. Seems logical. Doesn't make anybody weird. Republicans have long shared clips of Harris's laugh and some of her jokes and started trying to make her vice president seem weird because he laughs. An anecdote she told last year about scolding her, you think you just fell out of a coconut tree, which is never weird. The coconut tree has itself become a Democratic in-joke the days since Harris took over the campaign. Many of her supporters have embraced coconut emojis in their online accounts. Calling Republicans weird may be the way to take Republicans' previous tactics and make them their own, said Matt Sankowitz, a communications professor at Boston College. University of Buffalo communications professor Jacob Nykeisel compared the weird message to Arizona Senator John McCain's 2008 attempt to portray Barack Obama as a celebrity with no real accomplishments. At a functional level, I think this might be part of a concerted attempt to mitigate some sort of long-standing efforts on the right to paint Harris in a similar way. Okay, I don't think that's anything to do with it. I think they're just weird. So there's a story about the word weird and how it's being used. Back to you.
Weird is coming back as an insult. I guess it's always been an insult. It's always been dismissive for me. When you call something weird, you're just dismissing it. You're not even trying to.
Weird Al Yankovic sings his regards. He's made millions off being weird. So I don't know if it's even I don't even know if it's even a dig. So,
yeah.
But it's still.
I think it's because of him that weird now. Is no longer an insulting word.
It's working for now.
Yeah.
Weird works for parodying rock songs. Doesn't work for being president and vice president.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, speaking of more weird news, or I guess this is also wacky news, let's talk about Joan of Leeds, who faked her list to pursue a life of carnal lust. This is a story off of allthat'sinteresting.com by Marco Margaritoff, edited by John Kurowski. Committing to the lifelong pursuit of being a nun and living in a convent is one that requires extreme commitment, particularly in the 14th century. For Joan of Leeds, a rather rebellious English nun at St. Clement's Nunnery in York, a change in pursuits required extreme measures, namely, escape. Archivists at the University of York recently uncovered Joan's fascinating backstory while translating and digitizing 16 registers of the York's archbishops using the document current events between 1304 and 1305. So this was big news back in the 1300s. Joan of Leeds has escaped the nunnery! What they found was a tale of intrigue and an admirable cunning, as Joan faked her own death by creating a dummy in the likeness of her body and placing it among actual corpses before running away. Changing one's mind about life in a nunnery was a substantial faux pas at the time, due to both the gravity of the religious commitments being broken, as well as the limited agency women experienced in medieval times. York's religious leaders were highly displeased at her actions. She now wanders at the lodge, the notorious peril to her soul, and to the scandal of all her order, wrote Archbishop of York William Melton in a record dated 1318. From the surface evidence alone detailing Joan using a dummy, burying it in a place that would strongly point to her being dead, escaping the Covenant structures with clearly a priority that outweighed any potential consequences or retribution. A note in the register explained that she impudently cast aside the propriety of religion and the modesty of her sex by faking her death in a cunning and nefarious manner, which had her simulate a body illness where she pretended to be dead before placing her makeshift look-alike in a sacred place among real dead members of a religious order. After successfully fooling her Benedictine sisters in burying the dummy, Joan fled St. Clement's and traveled around 30 miles to reach the town of Beverly. When Archbishop Melton discovered what she had done, he commanded a subordinate to retrieve her. Having turned her back on decency and the good of religion, seduced by indecency, she involves herself irreverently and perverted her path of life, arrogantly to the way of carnal lust, and away from poverty and obedience, wrote Melton. Yeah, you would say that, wouldn't you? It's entirely unclear if Melton's church official ever located Joan, if she was to create a new life for herself, or whether she ever even returned to the covenant of her own volition. What is fairly well established, however, is that the long-term career choices for women at that time were essentially relegated to serving at a nunnery or participating in an arranged marriage, or working for a living, usually in agriculture, retail, real estate, or crafts. Yeah, maybe she wanted to be a blacksmith. You never found her. You're never looking for that female blacksmith. There were limits to how far they could succeed in even enter many professions, still less positions of public authority, said University of York historian Sarah Rees-Jones, lead archivist of the digitizing project. In the early 14th century, vowing to become a nun was a viable path for women as young as 14. While this wasn't officially forced upon women, the commonly voluntary life choice was admittedly bestowed upon young girls and monks by ardent religious parents quite often. Whether this was Joan's story, a young girl who never wanted to become a nun, live in a convent and sacrifice her freedoms, or made daring escape to lead a better life, we'll possibly never know for certain. As it stands, however, it seems as though Joan's overarching goal of leaving without a trace was pretty well accomplished. I'm more curious how they discovered that she was really dead, because I don't know if you know anything about weird stuff men do to dead bodies, but did they check? They buried her already, and then she ran away. So did somebody unbury her and realize it wasn't her body? Very weird. That's for me. That's the weirdest part of the story. So there's your story. On to yours. You're muted.
Keyboard typing. I was keyboard typing. You don't hear that. Okay. More weirdness. Well, we had the Venezuelan elections, and what's going on with Maduro, who apparently thinks he won even though he didn't. But again, if you're a dictator, you can cling to power in these countries because you control the military. Oh, crazy world. A bad life has been, as bad as life has been for Venezuela. This is from americasquarterly.org. Ryan Winter. As bad as life has been for Venezuelans over the past decade, it could have been worse. For all the suffering, the repression, and political dissidence, the exodus of a quarter population, and other horrendous acts, it was still a country where, unlike Cuba and Nicaragua, political speech was not completely restricted, and some trappings of democracy were maintained. Apparently because Nicolas Maduro's backers cared at least somewhat about global opinion and maintaining economic linkages to their neighbors and other Western democracies. This desire, this reluctance to go full Ortega in the mold of Nicaragua's dictator Daniel, seems to have led Maduro to a miscalculation how surely he now surely regrets allowing Sunday's presidential election to take place as it did. Even though voting was never going to be free or fair, Maduro did ultimately, under pressure from the United States, but also his longtime leftist supporters in Brazil and Colombia, allow for the participation of Edmundo Gonzalez, a candidate aligned with popular opposition figure Maria Corina Machado. Maduro vastly underestimated Machado's political skill, while his prohibition of European and most other credible election observers was in the end not enough to blind the world or his own people to the nakedly obvious election fraud his government announced this Sunday night. As Monday progressed, it became clear that Maduro was willing to take the next step and become a fully rogue, isolated Nicaragua-style regime if necessary to retain power. The regime named Machado as a suspect in a so-called electoral sabotage, a potential prelude to arresting her and other political opposition figures. After several Latin American countries called for Maduro to respect the popular will, Maduro reacted by ejecting all of the diplomats from Caracas, an extreme step, but even the Cubans have hesitated to take over the years. He suspended many of the few remaining international flights into his country, and as thousands of Venezuelans streamed into the streets late Monday and into Tuesday to demand their vote be respected, toppling several statues of the late Hugo Chavez, their refusal to crack down even more violent than previous rounds of repression in the 2010s, which left hundreds dead. In trying to understand Maduro's behavior and anticipate what may happen next, I come back with two key assumptions. The first is that Maduro and his allies fear most is not losing power per se, but spending the rest of their lives in a supermax federal prison in the United States. Well, they have something in common with defendant J. Trump, don't they? With numerous officials, including Maduro, facing indictments in U.S. courts on drug trafficking charges and enough documented corruption and human rights abuses to keep The Hague fully occupied for a decade, Maduro and his backers in the Venezuelan military were never going to leave the office without some kind of sweeping deal for immunity or a transitional justice. The second assumption is that Chavismo's model has always been Cuba, where authorities have successfully stayed in power by repressing dissent, ignoring the economy when necessary, and exporting malcontents for 65 years and counting. Take the long view, the event view. This is just another storm that will pass. It is possible that these assumptions are wrong. The Venezuelan power structure may be weaker, more divided, and eager for change than we appreciated. Believing that their growing lack of legitimacy at home and abroad was to be unsustainable. Maduro may be staking out tough ground now in his anticipation of eventual negotiation, but if Maduro is indeed willing to do whatever it takes to stay in power, then whatever path remains to a democratic transition will be both narrow and extremely dangerous in the days ahead. International pressure, particularly from Brazil and Colombia, will be necessary but insufficient. At this stage, Maduro regime knows that the world knows, and does not care. about the Sunday's results. The threat from Washington or European nations for further sanctions or recognizing Gonzalez as Venezuela's legitimate leader also seems unlikely to move the needle. We've been there already, and with little positive effect and plenty of collateral damage. Critically, Maduro received instant support on Monday from governments of China, Russia, and Iran, which may provide enough economic and diplomatic lifeline for him to weather whatever storm is coming. None of those countries are doing particularly good right now. China is kind of going into a recession. Russia has destroyed their own economy, and Iran just wants to start a bunch of wars on a lot of fronts. So that's 3 countries that, well, boy, we got those guys. You know, the focus then turns to dynamics within Venezuela itself, many of them unknowable. How willing will everyday Venezuelans be to risk the injury or death to attempt to force Maduro from power? Can Machado and Gonzalez keep their supporters, many of whom are understandably disillusioned by numerous cycles of hope and repression over many years, engaged over time? Can they do so while simultaneously keeping channels open with elements within the state apparatus in order to negotiate some kind of transition? Will the security forces, which so far seem united and capable of suppressing any dissent in their ranks and society at large, begin to fracture if the show of popular resistance is mass enough? How willing will rank-and-file soldiers be to spill their countrymen's blood? These are like soap opera questions. Stay tuned next week for as Venezuela turns. There are questions that dissidents in Nicaragua, Cuba, China, Russia, Romania, Libya, and elsewhere faced over the years. Results have mostly been grim, pointing once again to that old adage, once dictators take power, they're almost impossible to remove. Almost. So there's your story. It was kind of long. It said 3 minutes. I know that was longer than 3 minutes. So don't have time for news of the weird. Those are a bunch of short little articles I was going to get to, but I'm not going to get to them. Didn't have time. The 3-minute read was like 6 minutes. So
I don't think it was that long, but I guess maybe it feels that long.
I don't have a video for you. Maybe you can use the gavel out today. Yeah, I couldn't find anything. All right.
Okay. Well, right. You still have another story that I have to read, so.
I'm sorry?
Find something. Not the end yet.
Oh, there's just a bunch of short blurbs, and I was going to read them all. That would have taken another 3 or 4 minutes, so. Nah, that was a long enough story.
Okay. For culture news coming out of Lifestyle, this wacky Italian town has rallied support for the mayor to do weekly weight loss walks, and they're all going with him. This is from Rebecca Ann Hughes on Euronews Culture. Small Italian town's mayor fights to lose weight has gone viral after he campaigned for a company on his weekly walks. Visit the northern Italian town of Valdobbiadene on Thursday nights, and you'll find a few hundred people on an evening walk with their mayor. Luciano Fregones was re-elected as mayor of the town in the Veneto region in June. Since his first mandate a decade ago, the 47-year-old has gained 50 kilograms, which he blames on the job's convivial obligations. He goes to many parties, and long working hours. He has vowed to return to the 90 kg he weighed when he was first elected and is now undertaking weekend walks to slim down. The Italian town walking weekly just to lose weight. For sure, it was a question of laziness and a sedentary lifestyle too, but being mayor meant I no longer did any sport or physical activity, Fregones told the UK paper The Guardian. The other problem is that I enjoy eating and drinking, also because you eat and drink well here, and so it's not easy to follow a diet. Valdobbiadene is famed for its sparkling white wine Prosecco, but Fregones says the volume of food and irregular eating hours were the bigger problem. When planning his re-election campaign, friends suggested he make his weight loss goals the main objective. It seemed to convince many of the town's 10,000 residents, and Fregones won by a considerable margin with 67% of the vote. I won the election, and I thought I should start getting busy, but I didn't know how. I never had time, the mayor told Vanity Fair Italia. Then, chatting with a friend who had the same problem as me, we said to each other, let's go walking together. And why don't we ask the people of the town too? So, Fregones decided to turn to his weekly Thursday office hours for residents into walking sessions. A few weeks ago, Fregonese started taking advantage of the hilly terrain to undertake 5.5 kilometer walks through the town and surrounding vineyards. Those who cared about me tell me I have to think about my health, and I want to do it together with my citizens, he said in his first meeting, where 45 people turned up. The week after, it grew to 113 and has since snowballed to 215 and 12 dogs. Wow, that's crazy. Post-trek photos, videos, and a route are posted on the mayor's Facebook account. Naturally, Fregonese can't talk to everyone who joins the walks. In reality, 10% of the citizens come to make reports and requests to me. The others just accompany me and go for a dog or family walk in an exclusive, non-performative group, he told Vanity Fair Italia. It's a good because I certainly can't maintain a brisk pace. Fregonese says people now wait at their windows to greet them as they walk by and even offer a glass of wine. But obviously the mayor isn't tempted. I'm already tired walking the 5 kilometers. Imagine if I had to drink, he said. So there's your fun, wacky story about the mayor who went on his weight loss journey with this entire town, basically. 250 people and 12 dogs. Amazing.
Wow.
That's a half a good Newsday story, and well, I'm happy I saved it for today because it is also wacky.
Yeah, wow. It is wacky. Oh, I did send you a video, by the way, so I found some
I you'd find one.
So there you go. It's only, you can just show the whole thing. It's like a minute. Minute 49.
Okay.
All right. So, on this day in history is where we're going next. On this day in history, in 1556, Saint Ignatius of Loyola, founder of the Jesuit order of the Roman Catholic Church, died in Rome. In 1667, on this day, the Treaty of Breda ended the Second Anglo-Dutch War and transferred New Netherlands, now New York and New Jersey, to England. So it was end of, I get what's it called, New Amsterdam.
Such a creative name, New Netherlands. What should we name this land? Should we ask the people who live here? Nah, we'll just name it New Netherlands.
Right. And what's his name? Peter Inuit was the Dutch guy who bought Manhattan from the Indians for
some
like
blankets,
$50 in trinkets or something like that. Yeah. 1921, Whitney M. Young Jr., who spearheaded that drive for equal opportunity for African Americans in industry and U.S. government service while he was head of the National Urban League, was born in Lincoln Ridge, Kentucky. Lincoln Ridge. They had a ridge named after Lincoln. In Kentucky. Well, it was in the Union, technically. 1948, U.S. President Harry S. Truman dedicated Idlewild Airport to the New York International Airport as New York International Airport. It was later rededicated as JFK International Airport in 1963. So that airport opened at one they call JFK out there in Long Island on this day in 1948. 1965, British author J.K. Rowling was born. We know who she is. 2006, because of health problems, longtime Cuban leader Fidel Castro was talking about Cuba. And this day in 2006, Fidel Castro handed over provisional power to his brother Raul. Not Raul from Eating Raoul, if you've ever seen that movie. The dark, softcore pornography movie about eating people. The later served, not that Raul. He was not eaten. The latter served as the country's acting president until officially assuming the post in 2008. In 2012, Gore Vidal passed away, American novelist, playwright, essayist, who was noted for his irreverent, intellectual, adroit novels. Gore Vidal, a cousin of Al Gore, actually, like first cousins. 2012, at the Summer Games in London, American swimmer Michael Phelps captured unprecedented 19th career Olympic medal. Just go ahead and hog all the medals, why don't you, Michael Phelps? 19th career Olympic medal when he helped the U.S. team win a 4x200 meter freestyle relay. He surpassed the record set by Soviet gymnast Larisa Latinina, who had apparently 18 career medals. I think Simone Biles is edging up there. I don't know what her count is.
I think she's already beat the record. I don't know. I have to look.
Has she? I don't think she has. She only
There's
has
a
one
bunch
so
of people
far this year.
celebrating
That's
her
team.
on social media, but she just won. But
Oh, they won the team medal, the gymnastics team medal. So she wins another medal. I'm not sure it puts her 19. That's a lot. In 2019, American theatrical producer and director Harold Prince, which is the name of my brother-in-law, coincidentally, died at the age of 91. He is a recipient of a record-setting 21. Speaking of records, he hogged all the Tony Awards, winning 21 Tony Awards, including one for Lifetime Achievement. Well, they gave him, on top of all the other ones he had, they gave him for Lifetime Achievement. Dang, there's a theater guy. Our featured event, 1971, the lunar roving vehicle used in the first time. And this day, 1971, Apollo 15 astronauts James B. Irwin and David Scott. Never heard those names before, but they walked on the moon. They should be famous. Why aren't they famous? Anyway, first used the four-wheeled, battery-powered lunar roving vehicle to extensively explore the moon's surface, and particularly the Hadley Apennine site. I think you can still see that lunar module rover thing still there. They left it behind.
Simone Biles only has
pack it up and,
like 8 or whatever, probably like 12, whatever, gold medals.
What's that?
Yeah. She's nowhere close to 23.
Ah, yeah. So, she's probably going to get there this year. Well, it's 19's record, not 20.
Yeah.
All right. Another featured biography, Milton Friedman, American economist, was born on July 31st, 1912 in New York City. So happy birthday to him. He died at the age of 94, San Francisco, California. Economists live a long time. There's a lesson to learn. Be an economist. Other birthdays today, Primo Levi, Italian writer and chemist. John Searle, American philosopher. Primo Levi was born in 1919. We already covered Milton Friedman. John Searle, American philosopher, born in 1932. Wesley Snipes, famous actor, American actor, born in 1962, turning 62 today. 62, and he was born in 62. And 1965 is the birthday of J.K. Rowling. We already covered that one. And what other days is it today? National Mutt Day. This has to do with dogs, but a lot of people call themselves a mutt. So I know I'm a mutt. I'm a mutt. I'm like I'm like European, Scottish, German. Of course, I'm even 1% African. I'm a mutt.
Most people are.
National Avocado Day.
Avocado.
National Avocado.
Thanks.
Oh yeah, whip up that guac in the kitchen. Get yourself some chips and just have your avocado toast, as everybody's famously likes to make fun of people for being precious or whatever because they get their avocado toast. And it's National Raspberry Cake Day. So a couple of foods today. And of course, if you got yourself a mutt dog, which a lot of people do, they like to, my dog's a purebred, whatever, with all kinds of health problems. No, your dog's a mutt. Stop it. So these are your days for today, which is July 31st, the last day of July, 2024, on before raspberry cake.
All right, this has been Allison here from the Netherlands, where I'm going to go to a barbecue later, and I hope you're jealous, as we're finishing off this weird and wacky episode of Before Coffee. Tomorrow will be our Thursday 13, where Rog is going to list off 13 things, and I don't know what the subject is, and that's the surprise. So check that out. Subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you're notified when we go live or post a video. And don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed me forgetting to turn off my autofocus, and there was a giant square box on my face for the first 2 stories, and I didn't notice until after. But hey, it's pretty wacky, so it's fine. It's not a big deal.
Hey.
Stay safe out there. Keep your temperature regulated. Wear sunscreen. Drink water. And let's look at our mic drop moment.
Now, I had a longer video with trombone players in a herd of cows, but that takes about 6 minutes.
I always love when animals like music. Because, they don't really make music themselves.
Oh, yeah. cows love it. They just love any weird sound. They come to investigate it.
I'm not sure where the cameraman's looking.
Waiting for mother cows to respond, I guess.
Yeah,
They're like,
don't
we
care.
don't care. It's just an accordion. It's not like it's a trombone or something. Trombone really gets them running because I think it has that cow frequency.
Did they say where this was? Just like in the middle of nowhere.
That's got to be in the Alps, man. I mean, look at it. Cow's got a bell, too. It's a bell cow. It might not be a cow.
It could be a bull,
Maybe
yeah.
a bull. I haven't noticed. It's not.
But we weren't looking. I wasn't close enough to even look. Is that a horse? That looks like a horse.
You can see an udder. You can see an udder on a cow. Anyway, it's irrelevant. City folks call them all cows,
Yep.
whether they're male or female. Yeah, that's a cow.
Just smelling the accordion. Cows don't wag their tails because they're happy. They wag their tails to get rid of flies.
I don't think that's his actual music either. That's just somebody
No.
typed it in.
This is some weird goofy.
Either way, it's your weird video.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.